guards and all that kind of stuff. I try to use some, but some of them get in the way. I think it's more important to know the tools that you use.
Mm-hmm.
You should be able to, you should understand how they work, the kickback suppressors, the riving knives on your table saw, and the other safety features. One of the first things I heard is the most dangerous tool in your shop is a dull blade. And I believe that to be true. A dull saw blade is more likely to kick back. And if you do catch something on it, it's better that it cuts real fast and you move it away, or it could just drag your hand into it. I have your sharpen your chisels and saw blades. I mean, I just used one of my chisels the other day and it was so dull I couldn't, so I reached in and got a sharp one. So don't use dull chisels especially. You got to put too much force and there's likelihood of slipping. And if you're, one of the things at the classes that we did at the Maloof is that if you're not comfortable with something that we ask you to do, don't do it. We're more than able to do it, but if there's something, even if you're an experienced woodworker and there's something that you want to do that you haven't done before, you're a little uncomfortable, don't do it. If you have that slightest little bit of doubt. And one of the other things I would always say is don't ever hurry when you're around power tools. Be slow and deliberate. Even to the point, if you drop something, don't try to catch it. You know, whether it's a sharp chisel or your cup of coffee or whatever. Yep. Just let it fall. Balance, slow, and deliberate. And I have a couple other. Understand the forces that are being applied with the machine. You know, where's the kick out going to be? I was using my table saw the other day, and I've used them for years. And I said, oh, if I do this, if I cut this, it's going to spit something out. So I just leaned over a little bit and cut, and sure enough, it just spit it right out. So know and understand and know the forces that are going to happen to your particular stuff.
Yeah, could we talk about the saws, the table saws a little more, maybe?
Oh, yeah, we'll. My last point.
Okay, yep.
Yeah. I think I have don't rip scrap wood. No. Don't rip crap wood on a table saw, okay? I bought some like $1 a board foot something maple or something from a local good dealer or hardware store or lumber yard, Peterman. And I said, well, that something's wrong with something. What's the deal? So I said, what's up with this wood? And he said, well, here, I'll give you a stick. And I took it home and I made one pass. It was straight edge on one side. I made one pass, and the wood was so bad. There were so many internal forces. It had been dried. Actually, it had what's called case hardening. And when I cut it, it stopped my 220 volt table saw. It stopped it. And if I hadn't have been ready for it, it could have been bad. So I did not buy the wood. So on that note, I'm going to turn it over to my good friend Joan about what did you learn at Art Center on the safety when you first started doing this, and then go on to your saw stop.
All right, well, hey folks, I'm Joan, and my alma mater, Art Center, a very known industrial design college. When I started there the first term, we were introduced to the shop, and the first thing we needed to do was learn all the tools. So all of these tools are designed to be used a certain way, and if you're uncomfortable or you don't know what you're doing and you don't understand the forces, it could be very dangerous. But I guess, where should I start? We started with safety gear, so always wear your eye protection. You know, once you're on the move, it's really easy to forget eye protection. So
I forgot the eye protection.
We're always reminding each other that, you know, put your goggles on. And then just a lot of practice. Like Dennis was saying, for the workshops we taught, I did a few with not only Dennis but also Larry. We used a table saw, and no matter what tool we use, you have to understand how to use it, how to hold it, and the forces. And that is like knowing if something does go wrong, which way the blade is spinning, where it might launch the tool, where it might launch the piece of wood, where your hand might end up going. And you know, when I watch experienced woodworkers like Dennis, I can tell, even though you have the safety gear on, like the way you stand behind the table saw is like you kind of know. Like, all right, the blade is there. I'm gonna be a little to the side here.
Or when I'm doing something, you're like, hey, Dennis is like, hey, stand a little over
Yeah.
there, like, you know, maybe a little differently, and you know, so it's like, but I understand why he's saying that, is because he's thinking about the safety aspects of what could happen if there's a problem.
And once you get used to the machines, you get an idea. You've made enough mistakes of like what happens when things do go wrong. The table saw, let's see, in college we used the table saw a little bit. Mostly we were using band saws, and they actually didn't let us touch the router. So I had to do that after. But you know, it's like in an institution like that, there's so many people, you can't really trust all the students. They went over safety, they trained us, we had to take a test and use all the machines in front of the shop instructors before we were allowed to go in and out of the shop. And every term, a new student ends up doing something they were told not to do, and we got to call paramedics. Yeah, so.
Tell me about your saw stop.
All right, so I own a saw stop, which is what debatably the safest saw because of the saw stop technology. If it senses any flesh moisture, it will trigger a cartridge that stops the blade instantly and pulls it away. A pretty great feature. It costs about like $300? No. Is it 300?
Yeah, a blade and the cartridge, $100 for
$100
each.
cartridge and the blade. So what I was doing, which I don't recommend, but
Disclaimer.
once you get used to the tools and you understand how they work and why they're designed a certain way, you might get to a point where you need them to do something that they weren't designed to do. So in my case, I was designing and creating a table that had some interesting geometry challenges, a lot of 45-degree angles, and I'm not sure offhand, I don't know if you guys know, when two 45s meet, what angle the other, anyway, I don't know. But the saw knows, and I was able to make all my cuts on this table saw for one side of what I was doing. But when it came to turning it over to the other side, many table saws, the blade only pivots one way. I needed to turn it the other way, and it doesn't do that. So what I decided to do was cut it from the other side.
Those of us who know, I can see it on your face.
Never do this. This is called a climb cut. And climb cuts are no-nos. They're not allowed. And the reason they're not allowed is because you can gain traction.
In a hurry.
So you're supposed to cut into the blade. The blade is spinning towards the material. If you are cutting something, it's really common on router tables also because you're moving things around. So it's easy to get turned around in which direction you're supposed to be going. And sometimes with the grain direction, I know you might have to do in very narrow passes a climb cut, but whenever you're doing that, if the blade is spinning in the direction you're pushing, then it's really easy for the blade to just catch your material, and the blade is spinning at how many RPMs?
10,000.
So it just shoots it wherever. So
Launches it.
So doing a climb cut on a table saw is what I was doing, and because I understood the forces very well, and and no one was looking. I made some jigs, some proper precautions. I knew that if this didn't work, the table saw would launch the piece of wood in the direction the blade was spinning. So I placed myself not in that area, the danger zone. I also had a magnetic stop that I positioned so that it wasn't even making a full pass. I just needed to cut the edge of something from the opposite way. All to say, it worked. I did it. I didn't tell anyone. Dennis never found out.
This is the first time I ever heard this.
But I tried it again, this time with a smaller piece of wood and a dado blade. So
I don't think I want to know this.
So for those of you who don't know, the dado blade is wider, and the smaller piece means I had less leverage to hold on to, and it did gain traction. I was on the opposite end so that I would not be launched into the blade, but once it gained traction, all I
Bang.
heard
Instantly.
was like a thump, and the piece disappeared from my hand. And the saw stopped instantly. I blew the cartridge. I was surprised I blew the cartridge because normally if you have kickback or something, your wood explodes. That doesn't trigger the saw stop. Only if flesh or some moisture touches it or metal, that will trigger it. And I didn't think that anything touched the blade, but then I noticed a little drop of blood on my table saw. And I did nick my thumb. It happened so fast, though, I'm not sure.
The moral of the story is
What is the moral of the story?
buy saw stop.
Buy a saw stop.
Yeah.
Also, be aware of the forces.
Forces.
Yeah, because if you are going to do something that you know is dangerous, at least making like an experienced...
Yeah, and actually, you bring up a really good point, Joan,
Mm-hmm.
is that Joan and I work very similarly. You know, we decide what we want to make,
Mm-hmm.
and then we figure out how to make it. And if it requires an unusual use of a machine or something,
Mm-hmm.
we'll do it. And I know it's getting. Joan was talking about climb cuts on router bits. I just happen to have a router here. If you can take a look at that, that's my favorite thumbnail guy, and that's pretty big. That'll take a lot of wood in a hurry. And the direction of rotation, okay, when you put the wood, I don't know if you can see this, but if you put the wood in the direction of the rotation, that's a regular cut. If you feed it from this side, that's a climb cut. You'll hear a lot of people say you never do a climb cut, which for the bigger router bits. In guitar making or in my guitar making, I use climb cuts all the time, but I have little tiny router bits. And the reason I do a climb cut is because there's less tear out. Never with one this big, but on 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 inch, maybe a 3/8, but probably not. You can do a climb cut if you're really careful to avoid tear out
Mm-hmm.
on the wood.
So and it's a guitar, right?
And it's a guitar.
So the risk of gaining traction.
We're talking 3 millimeters worth of wood. So, this is kind of real world, normal forces. You never climb cut. Understand what both of them are and adjust accordingly.
Yeah. Anybody have any questions about this stuff at all, or input, or?
Last week we talked about the spline joint,
Right.
and doing those on the table saw. So to get more information, I was watching this video, and he had made a jig, but he just held it with his hand. And I thought, can that be safe? I mean, I just didn't think that seemed very safe.
No,
I'm using like 10 clamps myself,
Yeah, I wouldn't, even on the little one that I did, maybe if we got time. Yeah, we got time.
Are you talking about when you are not cutting all the way through the
Yeah.
top? So, yeah.
just
I
happen.
think I agree with Dennis. Whenever I do that, even though I know the blade is not going to cut all the way through, so your hand should be safe on top, I still don't like having my hand near where that blade is going to be. So
Keep talking, Joe. I'm just trying to find a
push stick or
Well, and you got to think the reason being is if it does grab that piece of wood and do something with it, where's your hand? If your hand's right there, where's your hand going to go? And it's so fast, like you said, is you don't have a control where your hand's going, so you want it further away from the blade. I think you're right.
true.
The
Also
idea.
habits, like if you get used to just doing that and then one day you forget to lower the blade and then you know.
Okay, can everybody see this? What I'm doing here? Can you? This may not be the best angle. Can you see that? Now what? Okay, let's say the saw blade. And maybe I don't know if I can do it though. Can we do that here? Let's do it this way. Can you see that? Say the saw blade is right here, and I want to do a cut like this, a spline cut like this, right? So all I have to do is take another sacrificial piece, a little bit bigger, but put it right there. You put it right there, right? You see what I'm doing? And then you do that. Because you're right, the forces are going to cause it to kick back like that. So all you have to do is just have a backer piece of wood that stabilizes it on your miter gauge. Make sense?
It's basically
Yeah, it does. But my question is, wouldn't it be safer if you had a jig and you clamped it so it wouldn't move?
Sure.
I guess I'm kind of worried. I want to try them, but I'm kind of worried that when I'm pushing it through, that it might move and kick up on me or something.
Okay, yeah, actually, probably, I don't use a lot of clamps, but even when I was doing that, here, hold on there, right there. No, this. You see where my hand was right here? And when I was doing this?
Yeah.
Okay, what could happen is that if I was holding like this, it could go like that. Say, and if we didn't have. So what I did is I would push it through like this. If it does go, it's just gonna tear away from my hand. It's not gonna drag my hand through the blade. That's all I care about. You can always get another piece of wood, but
So the forces we're looking at are you're pushing from the base against the table.
yeah.
You're not pushing from up top here.
Yeah.
You're pushing from
Yeah,
back
this
here,
guy basically, you're just doing this.
which is like
Now they make a mortising or a tenon cutter fixture that you could use that has exactly what you're talking about. You basically clamp it in and it runs in your tabletop or your saw guide thing. Yeah, totally safe. And I'm sure saw stopped making.
Okay, just remember when I try it, I'll be back here hopefully.
No, just again.
Hands gone.
no,
No.
cartridge gun at the worst.
Yeah, okay. Like I say, disclaimer, just, it can be done. But if you're not comfortable with the way we do stuff, if you're not comfortable with the way the guy did it on YouTube, then
Don't do
figure out another way. And clamping never hurts. And fixtures never hurt.
The only thing I'd be concerned about is side-to-side movement away from the fence.
Yeah.
And as Michelle was saying about making a jig, something that's tall that could give it support so there's no wavering
Yeah.
left and right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Pinching the blade.
yeah, the registration or this registration.
Right.
But I have done this so many times that I know, the machine that I use, I'm very comfortable with it. So like I said, what I do is way different. I'm sure the first time I did some of these things, I used a sliding fixture table and I clamped it up, but that was like 40 years ago. I don't remember last week. So
Maybe a jig to ride over the fence.
I'm sorry.
Maybe
Yeah.
to construct a jig that would ride over the fence that would be tall enough to support laterally
Well, that's what I was thinking about making.
Here. See?
Yep.
Okay.
Like that, just what I was thinking of.
Yeah, been there. I made this probably 15 years ago. This is the second time I've used it. Pretty nice, solid walnut.
But the whole point being is spend the extra couple minutes or half hour to make stuff like that if it makes you more comfortable using the saw, because if better than testing the safety features of the saw, is better to not even be in that situation.
Yeah.
So.
And
Are you
also,
ever worried about the saw stop for the fact that there's no way to test if the mechanism is actually going to work?
It will
there
work.
is a way to test the saw stop. When the saw stop is off, it has the red and green light, and if you touch the blade, the light turns red. Without it spinning, you know. While the saw is technically it's in on position, but the blade is off. So before you pull it out to start the blade, while the light is green, if you touch the side of the blade, the light will turn red, and that's how you know it's working.
Now, just as a, you know, I have 4 grandsons. None of them are interested in woodworking. If they were, I would go out and buy a saw stop tomorrow. Kevin's my nephew. You know, I ain't gonna buy one for you. And now, what is the only thing that you don't do on my table saw? You cross cut with this guy, right?
Right. Yep.
But you ripping is probably one of the more dangerous aspects of it using a table saw.
Yeah, I have not had to do it or done
Yeah,
any of
he
that yet,
doesn't.
so, yeah.
I'll do that because it's too easy and I don't want to. You know, eventually you'll get there.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to buy a saw stop for you.
Thanks.
Yeah. I love you, but interesting.
Anybody else questions or comments about table saws for this type of stuff?
Yeah, can you hear me? This is Jay.
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, so I weaned my teeth on a job site saw stop, and I recently graduated to professional model. I think everything that has been said is correct. A couple other comments I would make. My first experience with firing the safety feature of the saw stop was I was ripping beams, treated beams, and the moisture got me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's 2 things that I do now. If I have any suspicion at all and don't know the moisture content, I check the moisture content with my moisture meter, because that'll get you for sure. It conducts electricity and it'll fire your saw. The other thing is if you're using anything, and this is a biggie, if you're using any reclaimed or repurposed wood, you're going to get caught by a nail or a screw that you don't know about.
Yep.
So I also have one of the wands that TSA uses, and if I use anything repurposed or I'm not sure, I wand the wood
Smart.
before it goes to the saw. It's just too expensive. It's not only the 100 for the cartridge, but it's the 60 to 100 for the blade.
Yep.
As they both become fused, as they become interesting artwork that you can hang in your shop.
I save those trophies.
Yeah, the Malou Foundation has about 4 or 5 trophies on the wall.
And every trophy has a story. There's actually 2 more I will add to that. I had an employee who was in a hurry and tried to cut a piece he just glued up. Wet glue
Wet glue.
will set off your saw. And then right after he replaced the cartridge, he set it off again because he finished the cut and he did not wait after the saw was off for the blade to come to a complete stop. And he let something touch it and it triggered it. So
For those who aren't familiar with the saw stop, you can create the faux pas of operating in the unsafe mode if you know you have things that are going to fire your safety mechanism, like a head and screw or a nail.
Yeah.
You can cut through it.
but it doesn't stay in that mode.
You need to intentionally set it in the unsafe mode. And I would echo the comment about testing it to know whether it's working. First of all, when you turn the power on, it runs through a checkout sequence, and the lights are blinking and such, and it'll tell you if it does this code sequence, it's good to go. If it doesn't, it's ultimately it has to end up green, and that tells you that it's had run the circuit is ready to go, and you can use it. And I would finally say, no matter what the price of the saw is, and it's definitely pricey, it's a damn good saw to start with.
Yeah.
And plus it has a safety feature. And I think it's become in academic centers the standard of care. I have a daughter who was a professor of sculpture at the collegiate level, and she said definitely it's saw stop or nothing.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, I wouldn't. I would not buy a table saw unless it were a saw stop. Period. And that if you're not picking up, that's the recommendation. Yeah, you don't have to disclaimer.
I think we've gotten that. Yeah.
It's just it's you know I was in construction and I skill saws 77. I don't know, cutting, stacking roofs and all that kind of stuff. And I worked with so many guys that were missing portions of their fingers on usually their left hand, I think it was, because of kickback on it with a skill saw, and they weren't thinking, and it's a devastating injury. We've been lucky, or I've been lucky, but I do go through my safety procedures. Do I know where my fingers are? I will say that until I don't cut wood anymore.
Yep.
Jay, that's great.
A
Thanks.
question. What was the moisture content that it set the saw stop off at? Was it like a 10 or 9?
Not a 10.
Honestly, I have to admit I didn't check it before. I went and checked it after I fired my thing. It was around 13%.
Oh, 13. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not the kind of thing we as people who make furniture are using, but
You buy
but you have to be cognizant of it.
the wood coming from a reputable lumber yard is a lot of factors, but 10% is the maximum moisture content that I will use for fine furniture. Some of the rescue wood that I've used, in fact, I got some from DC, and I don't remember the species, but I cut it, and it was 10% on the outside, and it was pretty thick.
It was walnut.
It was like 14%.
Yeah.
So
They tend to have those wet spots.
Yep.
So it might be 12% on the outside and you think it's dry enough, but then you hit this one spot in the middle and it's just way more moist than the rest of the board.
But I would say, I don't know exactly what the saw stop would fire at, but you shouldn't be cutting any wood on a table saw that is greater than 10%, because you really shouldn't be making furniture with it. You could do other things with it, but
Yeah, agreed.
10% is my goal. And now where we live here in Southern California, we some of my wood's down at 6%.
Yeah,
And the reason it's 6 is because the moisture meter doesn't go down any lower.
Aren't we pretty lucky as opposed to the East Coast where they have to?
Yeah, someone mentioned 10 degrees. I was like, that sounds...
Joe and I are freezing to death at 50 this afternoon.
Well, I mean, just with the humidity though, it's like you gotta keep the wood in humidity controlled room and stuff. Here we just keep it.
Yeah, all my wood is in an unsheltered or an uninsulated shed. In fact, even the wood that's exposed, I've got some eucalyptus that's been out there for like 5 years and it's probably 4%. Fantastic. Thanks, Jay. I really appreciate those real world, other than just Jones' experience with the saw stop.
Yep. What about routers? Did you want to talk about those a little more or no?
The worst injury I ever got was with a router, because I hadn't been in the shop for quite a while, and I went in, I was going to make something, a towel rack or something. This was many years ago, and I just needed to round something over, and I couldn't remember, hey, I'm a great woodworker, right? And I had a router a big round over bit, or big cove core next to a fence, and I put the fence on the wrong side. I couldn't remember if the fence, and the fence was on this side, and I fed it through this way. Yeah, fed it through this way, and I heard that what's that noise that you said? It exploded, it goes kaboom. It was like a climb cut. And the next thing I know, my hand goes like this, and my arm flops around and hits the, I do a 180, and I said, oh, that's gonna hurt. And I did get 2 little cuts on my thumb. 2 little minor cuts on my thumb. So I take the routers very seriously. This guy here, we would use this guy at the Maloof classes, and I was ultra paranoid about beginners using this. The people who used it had absolutely no problems. They didn't worry about it. I did. But we had, and Joam or another instructor was just standing over them every second. Because you climb cut this guy here, it's gonna spit that wood out so fast, you can't react fast enough. But that routers are probably a little more, I'd say a little more dangerous. You're more apt to get an injury, not as devastating as a saw, but they hurt. That would.
So I think it's time for questions, right? Is there
Always.
Are you there, Tom?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm here.
Yeah. Hello. Long time no see.
Hey.
So you're asking a question about making a table leg that's basically tapered and rounded at the end and then square at the top. I didn't stick the picture on the computer here yet, but let's see if the.
Oh, the one I.
Yeah, I showed you though.
Okay. Anybody out there do CNC stuff? Okay. I don't do CNC. If I had a project where I wanted to make a rectangular tapered leg, I would make a fixture probably on my bandsaw, and I would cut it physically, and then I would taper it down as a rectangle on a fixture, and then I would route it, and then I would have different radius router bits, and then I would form it in. But you could do it like in 2 minutes with a CNC.
Yeah, it'll be a quick way to do it.
Yeah.
Also, neither of us use lathes.
Yeah, we're not.
But you could also turn it on a lathe.
Yeah.
That's what I was wondering. Yeah, if it was turned on.
Yeah, that's probably the best way.
That would be the fastest way.
At least for
No, go ahead.
the main part, but then on the square part you can't.
You
really-
leave it.
You
leave it.
yeah.
You have it squared off. You put it on the lathe.
Well, you do the taper.
And then you round off that end and you taper it.
Yeah, you cut the taper first, right? Or this is you cut the taper. You basically have a pyramid,
Yep.
a long taper, and then you put on the lathe, and then you just turn the portion that you want to turn. I might have to make something like that. It sounds fun.
Challenges. I like the challenges.
I'll put a link in here so everybody can see what we're talking about.
Yeah. Okay. You got it.
Yeah, found one here.
Many, many ways.
Was that a piano that you sent Kevin, or was that a cabinet? Or?
Yeah, it was a piano. Yeah, this Danish piano, the Acrosonic. I think it's made by Baldwin
Okay.
in like the 60s or 70s.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we had a piano, an upright piano that had again that tapered and rounded at the bottom.
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
Yeah, definitely. And so Todd, you have it looks like you got a question about for
where you were working in the shop, for industrial design.
You mean like before Art Center?
No.
Or
When you're at Art Center, because I know Art Center has, like Art Center at night, they have continuing education classes.
Mm-hmm.
So what kind of classes were you taking?
Well, I started Art Center in the transportation design program.
Okay.
So my foundation was that all of the industrial design programs they have the same kind of track, or at least when I was there. It was the car design, product design, environmental, and entertainment. I think they might have another now. So we did a lot of like prototyping and just understanding how to take our 2D renderings to 3D forms and drawing them, doing tape drawings, all that stuff. So all of the shop foundation classes were just to familiarize us with all the tools, because there's no telling what we were going to need to do like a few terms later.
Okay.
I did take a luthier program after Art Center because I made my first instrument at Art Center, and they do a really good job of hiring shop instructors with like a very diverse range of skills. So there's a person for almost everything, you know, and then they have the metal fabrication room, so there's a shop instructor that does metal work. There was a person who did make instruments, but I think it was more of a time constraint. And our Art Center, we used to say we never really finish anything, we just run out of time. So my college instrument was not very playable. And then afterwards, I decided I wanted to learn how to make a really like good quality instrument, because people were interested in it, but professional musicians would pick it up and be like, "Oh, this looks cool," and
It didn't work.
Yeah.
So what if I may, what are your intentions, or what do you want to do with the woodworking?
Yeah, so I'm just kind of exploring that now, but I am interested in product design, you know, so I would like to maybe, you know, prototype some things. Since I live in Burbank, down the street in Glendale, there's a community wood shop that I found, and I'm going to take just the beginner class to learn the tools that you have to take make a cutting board type of class to just learn all the safety things. But I'm possibly, I saw that Palomar College,
Excellent school,
in San Diego has a lot of different courses. So,
Citrus. I'm sorry. What was Cerritos?
Cerritos College, I heard. Yeah. Is that something else you recommend?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, Tony. I don't know if Tony's still running it, but absolutely a great woodworking program at both Palomar and Cerritos. I know the instructors there, good guys. And I want to do a little bit of a pitch for the Malou Foundation. They do offer classes at the Malou Foundation.
Yeah, I would
How do
probably
you spell that?
recommend those.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if Art Center at night has shop classes, because the full-time students, the shop class was part of that program, but a lot of their Art Center at night classes are at the other campus, which also has a shop now, but I'm not sure if they offered that. It was more design focused, if I recall correctly. But all of these the programs you've mentioned that teach you the basics, the foundation, that's what the Art Center offered anyway. So I would recommend it.
And also there's a group of people out where you live. I can't.
West Adams, LA.
Yeah, Allied Workshops. I think if you Google Allied Workshops, they offer some really. I mean, they got a cool space, and it really looks. I know the people that run it. They're really first-rate people.
What's the other one downtown?
Just Allied's the only one I know.
Yeah. What's that foundation again?
The Maloof, Maloof. That's the Sam and Alfredo Maloof Foundation for the Arts and Crafts. It's about 5 minutes away from here. It's in Altaloma or Rancho Cucamonga.
Oh, okay.
They offer, pretty. You don't really have to have a whole lot of experience. Our classes that Joe and I put on, no woodworking experience, but I think Warren is doing a basically it's a dado on the saw stop, and you make a wall shelf or something. Check it out. They're just getting. They've been doing workshops for a while, but they're kind of trying to gear up. They've been hit terribly hard with the COVID restrictions, and they're trying to get things geared back up. Check them out.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
I have a question
Go ahead.
on the router. Okay, so here's my question. You know, I'm kind of half blind in one eye, so I need a lot of light.
Yeah.
Has, you know, besides going and buying a brand new router that has the light already, has anybody put a light or done anything to the router?
I haven't put a light on a router, but I definitely add lights to my work area. I think that's the main thing. Just figure out the angle that you're going to be at and make sure your light is positioned. I don't think that, well, aside from the drills, the tool lights, they're not always that helpful for me.
My router table is right to the right of Kevin a little bit, and I have a bright LED light that shines right down on my router table. Everything I have in the shop is on wheels, and I will move it to the light to where I can see it. I think seeing is like really important.
It is essential. You know any blind craftsmen?
Not too many, but well, I'm getting there. I find not my safety glasses, but my readers I depend on now. Yeah.
Guys, don't you think that with routers, as you try to move in with your eyes, you get into where the sawdust is ejecting? And you know, I think that we, like every tool in our shop, there's the small handheld trim router, and then there's the router with more power that we can handhold and plunge, and then there's the router that's in the table upside down. Yeah. And we work with a fence, and we rely on bearings and the fence. So, you know, my comment would be, you have to know exactly what your tool can and cannot do. And again, I think it's actually very little with eyes with the router. I mean, you got something spinning between 10 and 35,000 times per minute.
True.
I think your eyes should be in a safe place at all times.
You gotta focus more on the technique and keeping it against whatever guide you're
Absolutely.
using.
I understand, but I think I like to have more light, as much light as I can possibly get at every operation I do. It just makes me more aware of everything.
No, I absolutely agree. I mean, I would never have enough light.
Yeah, I've got, in fact, we just changed. I've got all LEDs, and I've got lights over here and over there, and you know, we turn off this light here so it doesn't glare. But I've got an abundance of light, all Alexa controlled, by the way. You know, that all my vacuum systems are Alexa controlled.
We've also had a lot of projects where we don't want to route the whole piece, and so it'll be marked where to start, where to stop, where to start again, and so you do need to see your markings.
We like light, 5,000 Kelvin.
Yeah.
No, I was thinking, have you tried a headlight? I have these inexpensive headlights that come on. They're all LED and they're very bright.
I've tried them.
I haven't.
I don't like those. I don't like those for the machines because I do think having a stationary light that is angled at what you're cutting is best. So like Dennis was saying, mounting it to your workstation, your work table, I think would be ideal.
Yeah, you were gonna say something, Michelle?
No, I hadn't thought about, I looked at the headlights, but, you know, for the head, not headlights, same car. But,
Steve's got one right there.
yeah, I looked at that, but it doesn't interfere like with any of your safety mask or anything, or?
Yeah. I've never used it. You know, it sounds like a good idea. I use it when I go camping and stuff, but if you look at my little bandsaw that I use 99% of the time, it's got a light shining right on it that is, I mean, I need it to follow lines and all that.
So, Steve, it looks like you like those lights. Is that something you use a lot?
Yeah, let's see.
I use those lights all the time.
Cool.
I had one
Okay.
right in my possibles pile
Okay.
right here.
Well, what kind of woodworking do you do?
I do mostly lathe work
Okay,
now. I used to do residential construction. I've done some furniture,
yeah, cool.
but I like doing round things.
Okay,
This is what I was referring to as a headlight.
yeah, yeah,
Yep,
yeah.
that's the one.
You know, and they're adjustable and they're very bright with the LEDs today. They're amazingly bright.
Right,
You get a pretty wide beam on it too.
they are. And if you get one that is rechargeable.
I might have to get one of those.
They are handy.
Yeah, we stick them on the kids
Well,
when we run around.
I mentioned I do the dovetails, and we use really, we don't use ballpoints, we use scribes, and I got to tell you, I have to get one of these lights shining right on it so I can see the thing. So I might have to give that a try.
That'll actually probably work better than
Yeah, probably.
Don't get the cheap ones at, you know where.
At Hobo Freight.
Don't even think about those.
No. REI or one of those.
Yep. All
They're
right.
good for one use.
So, does anyone have any just general questions about anything? We're getting close to our end of our time here, so.
I got it.
I'd like to make a comment about design,
Okay.
because I found myself laughing when you made the comments early on about doing something 8 times because you were winging it. And I got tired of that and did a lot of chatting with folks and got introduced to SketchUp, and I've become fairly proficient in it.
Nice.
I would like to give the honest caveat that the free version is not much good for anything, and you end up having to go up to the professional version, which is a couple of $100 a year if you
Right.
subscribe to it. But once you're there, I can draw, I can compute my board footage, I can
Sounds
get
like
my
Tim
cut
Hadley just
list,
started
I can prove whether my design's going to work or not. It's just wonderful. You can do what's called exploding. You can X-ray things. And I would think somewhere along the line it might be appropriate for this group to talk about that because it's available to everybody.
I would love
tack on to that.
I would love to hear.
He wants to, got something to say here. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I was going to say, similar to Jay, completely agree with everything you just said, Jay. I started on SketchUp and then ended up going to Fusion 360, which I think also has a free version. And I ended up liking it better because it has what's called parametric design. So say if I'm designing a table for somebody and they're not sure exactly what size they want it to be, I can assign a value to certain things. So I could assign, say, table width, and I make it a value 36. And then whenever I sketch out the tabletop, instead of saying this is 36 inches wide, I would say this is the table width wide. And then I can keep designing. And then, after the table's completely done and the person comes back and says, I want it to be 48 inches now, then I can just edit that parameter and it does all the calculations and boop, makes it 48 inches, which has been really, really useful.
I love technology.
As I am proficient kinda in Fusion 360. I have
nice.
a 3D printer. I print out things that I might need. So I'm not averse to that technology. But what I do is tomorrow we're going to have a kind of a sculpting thing, follow up. And the reason it takes me several iterations of something is because I know what I want, but I don't know what it is until I see it. And tomorrow we'll get into that if that's a little pitch for tomorrow.
Yeah.
You want me to give a little tease?
Sure. Yeah. Well, let's got something right over there.
Remember, did you guys see this? Anybody remember this? I don't know if you can. I don't know if it.
Yeah, a little closer, I think.
Here, I'll take that. Here, hold on to it. Take the top off. And just gonna show them around a little bit.
Yeah, so basically this is the base for the table that,
Yeah.
we made the first workshop right there, and that's basically something that you just
This is a total make it up as you go. I can't figure out how to do this on Fusion 360. I mean, there's nothing symmetrical. There's nothing. The only thing that's similar is the legs are all kind of the same shape. But this is, I love the technology. I love the Fusion 360. It's really cool. I make pegboard hangers and all the little accoutrements for my nuts, the screws, and all that kind of stuff. I love it. But I've never really done that.
well, back to the original thing, right?
Yeah, this is what I do.
Yeah,
The other stuff
everybody,
is it adds to the whole process.
Yeah, there's no wrong way of doing anything if you're making stuff and
Yeah.
making beautiful furniture or whatever it is. There's 1,000 different ways to do everything, and luckily you get Dennis's 40 years worth of working and making stuff and successfully selling stuff too, and to get his input on the whole thing.
Production and all that kind of. This I tell you, thank you guys. I don't know what. Thank you. I'm so glad we have this. Thank you, Kevin, for doing this, because it's really fun for us. And I'm speaking for Ed and Joan, if I may. This is great.
Yep, and so.
What time is that class tomorrow?
6:30 Pacific time. So I don't know what that is. You're 2 hours away, right?
That's Oak Island
Oak Island.
is on.
So
Does that require a separate registration?
there is a separate. I sent an email out that has a separate Zoom link for that. So yeah, there is on the website. It has the Zoom link or registration for that. And I don't know if you got the email I sent out today. I had the Zoom link for both classes on that one, and they are separate links.
Well, my wood stove was working great today, and I spent the entire day in the shop.
So do we. In fact, I'm kind of dirty.
We're still here.
We're still here working.
About to cut some wood.
Yeah.
The base of that stool has some lovely joinery, and I applaud your creativity.
Well, thank you. It's just I love the sculpting. That's kind of what it's all about. The by eye. We're gonna do this one on tomorrow on this guy, and maybe we'll do a repeat of it on the next Monday for those if you couldn't make it or whatever.
Yeah, I do have a link on the website under the past workshops with that first one that shows the presentation as well. If it's another place to do it or to see it.
But I'm going to talk a lot about the sculpting aspect. What looks good to my eye, and how to reduce mass and how to make things pleasant looking, and trying to get away from the straight lines and perfect symmetry and all that. It just gives you a little bit of another avenue to pursue, and that's what this little guy's all about.
Yep, pretty much. And so for everybody, if you're not sure who these two people are, if you have Instagram, it's Dennis Hayes Woodworker Instagram, and this is Jome_Rivers_ art on Instagram. So you can check out some of their work that they do there and stuff, and they'll be here on Mondays as well.
Mm-hmm.
But they definitely, I dabble in woodworking. I've been learning a couple years, or 3 years now actually. I've made a couple things, but I'm not doing it nonstop like these guys do.
You got the knack.
Yeah, I love it. It's and actually, kind of the subject of today is I like woodworking because you got to focus on what you're doing, and it's a nice break from everything else. It's like you're paying attention to where your fingers are when you're using these power tools, and it's actually pretty relaxing to do some woodworking. Everyone has their reason, and that's one of mine. And I also don't want to buy a bunch of cheap furniture for my house. I'd rather just make good furniture. So, I think that's about it for tonight. Thanks for showing up, and definitely if you could make it tomorrow at 6:30 Pacific time, just
It'd be fun.
Yeah, definitely. And you could email me on the website at any time if you need a link or anything. The KevinH@cucamongawoodworking.com. So, everyone have a good night.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.
Bye.
Nice.
Yeah, it was fun. Good group of people. So there you go. So what do you think, Kev?